I'm Ashley Fox, and this is OUTFOXED. Dana O'Neill has been a preeminent voice on college basketball for more than 25 years. A proud Penn State alum, Dana covered a multitude of sports for the Philadelphia Daily News before becoming a national college basketball reporter for ESPN and later The Athletic. A 2021 inductee into the U.S. Basketball Writers Association Hall of Fame, Dana has authored 3 books, including 2 on Villanova men's basketball. Last September, she became Villanova's Senior Associate Athletic Director for Strategic Communication. A mom of 2 and friend to many, including me, welcome, Dana O'Neill. All right, Dana O'Neill, my longtime friend. I distinctly remember meeting you in 2000, I think it was, at Penn State at a women's basketball game. I had just taken a job at the Philadelphia Inquirer as a sports writer, and you were fairly new to the Philadelphia Daily News. And we were both climbing the ranks and were supposed to be competitors. And I met you, and I felt like I met my sports writing soul sister.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like, honestly, because first of all, I mean, weren't many of us, period, right? Like nationally, and there definitely weren't many of us in Philly. So yeah, I remember like kind of looking across like, who's that? Because, not in a mean girl way, but just in a curiosity way. And then just discussing whether or not we wanted to grab a drink afterward. And I think when you said yes, I was like, oh, I found my partner.
And we were both commiserating at being at a women's basketball game, which that whole sport has changed dramatically since those days.
Yeah, in defense of us and in defense of women's basketball, I mean, this was like 25 years ago. And at the time, I remember I was sent, and you probably were too, because the women's Final Four was going to be in Philly, and we were trying to cover everything leading into it. And I had been covering men's basketball, and I kind of was annoyed that they pulled me out of one to put me on the one that I didn't think people were going to care about, because frankly, at the time, they didn't. And we were both kind of commiserating on being sent to like the B team, which now probably that conversation between 2 women would absolutely not happen, which is good for the sport.
Totally good for the sport. Yes, it is. What, we were babies at that time. Yeah. What were your career aspirations? Like, what did you want to do?
Honestly, like, I always laugh about this because I always feel like I must have just been, I don't know, clueless. I didn't have any. Like, I didn't have these grand plans ever. I kind of tripped into sports writing when I was in college, and I just liked it. I thought it was fun. I loved writing. And I never was like, what's my next job going to be? It was just like the next job always sort of presented itself. And I was at the Daily News, and I was perfectly content. Like, I loved all the guys I worked with, and they were all guys. They were very supportive, very fun, funny. Philly people, like, as we all know, pretty rabid sports fans. So you always knew where you stood. And I probably would have stayed there, like, contentedly forever. I wasn't really like, oh, I need to go to X. But just the nature of the newspaper business, especially in a 2-newspaper town where it was sort of, one was going to die, and it was always going to be the Philadelphia Daily News that was going to die, made me uneasy. So when I had a chance to freelance for ESPN, I did. But it wasn't like I was climbing some ladder. Honestly, I probably would have just stayed at the Daily News till today. I have no idea if I had not been kind of in my head worried about not having a job. Like, I was really worried about the ability of the Daily News to survive, which it kind of didn't, and it kind of did, and I wasn't wrong, I think.
You, if I'm not mistaken, you went to Penn State, I thinking you were going to be a business major?
Yeah. And you say that laughing because you know me, which is like, if anybody knows me, they're like, you're a what now? I went to Penn State because I went to a tiny little high school in New Jersey, and my mother was the guidance counselor, and my brother went to school there. And I wanted to go someplace where everybody knew me by my social security number, and nobody was like, oh, you're DJ's sister. Oh, you're Grace Ann's daughter. So I went to this gigantic school. And I had a really rich uncle who was a venture capitalist. And to this day, I really have no clue what a venture capitalist does, but he made a lot of money and that seemed like a good idea. So I was going to be a venture capitalist. And I went and took one econ course my freshman year. And I stunk at it. Like I had never seen a supply and demand. I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. So quick pivot and long story, but by dumb luck, the RA on my floor, her name was Jennifer Edwards. We were all freshmen, and she brought us all like for you sit around freshmen, get to know each other, blah blah blah. She was on the Daily Collegian and the college paper, and they were looking for writers. And again, like I had no clue, but I was an athlete. I kept stats in high school. I liked to write. My mom was an English teacher. I was like, maybe I'll take the collegian test. What the heck? So I took it, and at the end, they ask you. If you make the collegian, what section do you want to write for? And honestly, this is the extent of my super career forward thinking. News is really serious. That science kind of sad. If I cover sports, maybe I'll meet Joe Paterno. Literally, that was my thought process. That's it. And then I covered field hockey because I played field hockey. And I came home at Thanksgiving and told my parents I wanted to be a sports writer. Like literally, it was 2 months of complete cluelessness to falling into it. I have no idea what I would have done if Jennifer Edwards wasn't my RA. Truly, I have no idea. Like I'd be curious where I would be. Definitely not a business person or a venture capitalist. That much I can assure you.
I was going to say how when I told my father, who I know you know, was a college basketball coach at Duke, Wake Forest, and Davidson when I was a little person. And he hated sports writers. And when I told him that I was going to be a sports writer, his response was, you should go to business school.
Probably sound advice for your sanity.
How did that conversation go with your parents?
I think it's actually, now that I think about it in retrospect, it was pretty cool. Credit to them because, again, this was your late 1980s and it wasn't normal. And they were like, good for you. Like, it was not like, oh, that could be hard, or how are you going to do that? It was like, okay. My dad was a huge sports fan, so that's why I like sports. I mean, he was crazy when he was in college. Like, he's a Yankees fan, and he had a little red MG, and he like started to like paint part of it black when they didn't win the pennant. I mean, he's like demented, honestly, in a really good way. So that's how I became a sports fan. And my mom, before she was a guidance counselor, was an English teacher, so that made sense. But yeah, they were like, okay. They never, I don't know, they just didn't say anything. Like, they were fine with it. Figure it out, I guess, was sort of their mentality. And I kind of just did. I mean, the collegian, I was lucky because the college paper there came out 5 days a week. So it was legit. And that was kind of a good baptism for a person who had absolutely no idea what she was doing. I still have some of the early like things I wrote. Oh, my God. Well, I'm going to find out. I got to burn them. I know I thought they were really good.
You don't know what you don't know.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
I'd like to think that we're kind of second generation female sports writers. We didn't have to fight for the access, locker room access, like our predecessors did, right. Claire Smith being one of them, who we both know very well. But still there were challenges. Yeah. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, honestly, almost all of the men that I worked with were very supportive. Mm-hmm. I was really lucky at the Daily News, even before when I started the Trentonian. I never felt like anybody was like, she can't because she's a woman. They were protective of me, if anything else, and would like kind of go to bat for me. And even as I moved on to ESPN and The Athletic, all of my coworkers or even colleagues at other sites were really, really supportive. I think, there was some, I can remember, a couple small things like, I remember covering the Eagles when I was probably at the Trentonian. I would go down there, and Troy Vincent was with the team. And I knew Troy when he was in college because he was from Trenton. So I had this connection by the time I got to the Daily News with Troy. I'd known him. His daughter babysat my kids. And, I would go up and talk to Troy, and he would talk to me and tell me stuff. And there was always kind of these sort of, I don't know, rumbling insinuations from some reporters, like, why does he talk to her? You know what I mean? And that was kind of uncomfortable. Or, a locker room was open and someone would be like, well, are you going in? I'm like, well, it's open. I'm like, yeah, I'm going in if it's open, or you're going to close it. Like, these are the things. Silly things that people didn't mean to be sexist or whatever, but they would say things like, oh, you're on the road. Where are your kids? I'm like, well, their dad has them. Are you asking, like, see those 10 men over there that also have children? Have you asked any of them where their children are? So it was kind of like micro things, but I didn't have it awful. I just always felt like, as a woman, and I always told young journalists this, and I'm sure you felt the same, like, my margin for error was zero. Like, I remember when I was at the Daily News, Ed Moran was the hockey writer, and I was going on maternity leave, and I was a backup writer for the Phillies. So we needed a new backup Phillies writer. So I brought Ed with me to a Phillies game, and we're at a game, and it's tied in like the bottom of the 7th inning. And he looked at me and said very loudly and very seriously, so what happens if it ends in a tie? And I was like, a shootout. And he's like, what? I'm like, extra innings? And I remember thinking in my head, like, everyone's like, oh, Ed, you doofus, like making fun of Ed. But if I had said that, totally different reaction, right? Like, we just, you couldn't, I was very conscientious of what I wore. Every place I walked, I never wore colors that were associated with the team. I never wore this kind of skirt. I never wore that. I was just thought, I think that was a big difference. And maybe it was in my head, but I felt like I had to think a lot harder to do my job.
And that's why we became fast, immediate friends.
Yeah.
Because I think we approached our jobs the same way. I was always very careful about what I wore and, like, what your body language is, and, God forbid you look down, like.
Correct. And I always used to say to people, I never wanted to be a woman sports writer. I just wanted to be a sports writer that happened to be a woman. I didn't want it to matter because it didn't matter to me, but I recognized that it mattered to other people. And so I was aware of that, but I always tried to, like, diffuse it. Like, I just want to do my job. Like just, that's all I'm here for. Like, I'm not here for anything. But, I used to tell, like, guys when I would go on the road, like, a lot of my friends wouldn't understand, like, why don't you just go to the hotel bar by yourself? I'm like, well, because, like, I'm by myself. And I used to say, like, if I were on the road and the Kansas coach Bill Self came in and sat down at the bar next to me and chatted with me, people would insinuate something. But if my male counterpart did it, he was being an aggressive reporter. Like, that was the perception. So I was always very aware of behaving properly, I suppose is the best way to phrase it.
We, it's funny because you talk about, like, I never wanted to draw attention to the fact that I was, or am, female. We both covered the Philadelphia Eagles in 2003 while we each were pregnant.
Yes.
You with your son, your second-born, and me with my daughter, my firstborn. And I don't know if you remember this, but after the Eagles beat Green Bay in the playoffs on the 4th and 26 pass that Donovan McNabb threw to Freddie Mitchell, I was 8 months pregnant at the time. Freddie comes up to me the next day, and I was like, you can't hide, right? And he comes up to me and he's like, I've got 2 words for you, Ashley. I'm like, what's that? He goes, bed rest. And I said, I've got 2 words for you, Freddie. Fuck off.
And that's how you had to be, though. Yes. Like, that's the thing. That's fantastic. I did not know that. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's how you had to be, right? Like, you were just like, I remember when I was pregnant with Kieran, with my son, because it was 2004 that he was born, because I missed the Smarty Jones end of that run, and because my daughter came early, I had to go on bed rest with him, and I missed St. Joe's run, but I went to the Big 5 banquet, and I was super pregnant. And I remember Jay Wright, I was covering Villanova, and now I work there, so now I can really make fun of him for this. He was being innocent, but he introduced me as 11 months pregnant. I'm like, dude, like, what does that even mean? Like, I remember saying at the microphone, like, what does that even mean? I'm 11 months pregnant. Am I huge? Like, he didn't mean anything by it, but yeah, good for you. That's a great answer to Freddie Mitchell most days. Regardless of situation.
Yeah.
It's applicable.
We also worked at ESPN together, although in different lanes for sure. You covering college basketball, and me, I was covering the National Football League. And we also were part of what I call the ESPN layoff class of 2017. I was blindsided and completely devastated. I'm sure you were too. How did you process that and pick yourself back up? Because it was
awful.
It was awful. It was really rough.
It was like the worst day, honestly. It was the longest, worst day. I remember sitting at my kitchen counter having breakfast, and the phone rang. It was an 860 area code, and we all knew that was like layoff day. And I remember, well, it's my turn. And I answered the phone, and I'll protect the name of the innocent, but the person who was doing the talking was not someone I cared for terribly well at ESPN. And they're reading kind of off the script about everything. And they're like, and now we're going to go over your benefits. And I stopped them. I said, stop. And they said, what? I'm like, listen, you just fucking laid me off. Like, I'm hearing nothing. I don't care about anything else you're going to say. From now on, every word that you're going to send to me is going to be in writing. It's not going to be on me to get all this accurately. I'm going to hang up now, and you're going to send me everything in writing. And I hung up. Now, the weird part was I was pretty miserable by that point at ESPN, and I actually randomly the next day was supposed to go and just have coffee with whoever the New York Times editor was at the time. There was no job, but I was just asking for coffee. And I was going to go to New York that night because two of my good friends, who I know are two of your good friends, were in New York, Pat Forty and Chuck Culpepper. Mm-hmm. And I was supposed to meet Pat and Chuck for dinner. And I called my husband, and I was beside myself, of course. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, go to New York. He's like, those guys can help you more than I can. I was like, okay. And they did. But, like I don't know if this is healthy. It probably isn't. But so much of your identity was crafted about that job of being a sports writer. It wasn't ESPN, but just being a sports writer, being a national sports writer. The layoff was so public that it was humiliating. It felt like no matter how many times everyone said it's not because of you, then well, why is it me and not them? Like, it's kind of about me. Like, if you're saying it's not about me, but not everybody got laid off, I did. So clearly it is about me, my product, what I'm capable of. And I was embarrassed, and I was mad, and I was terrified. I had 2 kids, and I was like, we need to pay for these people to like do things and go to college. All of that stuff comes like running through your head. And and then like as the day wears on and you're hearing like some of the other people that were like, I was like, there was like a badge of weird courage. Like, well, they're really talented. Like, if they just freaking laid off Ashley and Jason Stark and Andy Katz, like, clearly it's not about the abilities, right? Like, but it's just, it was awful. And I felt really just like, I shell-shocked, I guess. And I remember like years later, probably before I took the job at Villanova, I kind of like had a reality check with myself. And I realize now that that's what also was eating me then, was like, even though it's like nobody likes to talk about having an ego, there was an ego trip to be able to say, I'm a sports writer, I'm a girl, I'm a woman, and I work at ESPN. Like, that gave me cool street cred. And that all vanished overnight. At least it felt like it did. And I was like, I am not literally capable of doing anything else. Like, I don't know. I have zero other skills. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it was a long freaking day.
It was a long day. I remember I had a conversation with Ed Werder the night before, and he was really worried. As it turned out, he should have been, because he got laid off and then eventually rehired. But he said that Chris Mortensen had told him that that job, like your ability to do your job and your work product, was not a factor. And he was like, shouldn't that be the only factor?
Exactly. That's what I kept saying.
And it wasn't. And so I remember that day, because I remember it was all over Twitter. Yep. And you got laid off before I did and posted it on Twitter. And I didn't get the call until about 3:00 in the afternoon. And I had thought that I had survived. And I had also talked to my producer that morning because the NFL draft was starting in Philly the next day. And I was doing outside the lines and had like live shots to do. And I was like, oh, I'm good. Like
off we go.
I'm good to go. And then I got the call and they were like, do you still want to do the draft tomorrow? And I was like, no.
For real?
Yeah, I just collapsed on my like kitchen floor and I was like, I can't go on live television tomorrow. You just took my job away from me. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and I remember that day, by the time I got to New York on the train, it was like 6:00 at night, and I was checking into the hotel, and Andy Katz, who helped bring me to ESPN, he was like a mentor, so helpful getting me the job there. He called me, and Andy had been with ESPN since its founding, and it was sort of like the face of college basketball, and he just called me, and I'll never forget because it was awful. He sounded like someone had died. He's like, they got me. And I was like, big time out. Like I was so upset for him that I stopped being mad for myself for quite some time because I was so mad for Andy. Because nobody was a better company man than Andy Katz about doing that job and doing it well and carrying the pride and doing ESPN solid. I was furious. I was really, really mad. So that kind of helped me. And then we did go out to dinner, and Shannon Ryan, who we both know from our days at the Enquirer, tried to remotely send me a shot from Chicago to make me feel better at dinner. So there was that.
Well, and onward and upward for us both.
Yeah. I think that's the cool part, right? I don't know. I think it's probably a good thing in retrospect. At least for me it is.
Yeah. All right. So my producer is encouraging me to tell this story since we were telling a couple of war stories. And this one actually involves your good friend and mine, Troy Vincent. Uh-oh. So in 2003, I became pregnant, as you did. And I had been covering the Philadelphia 76ers for 3 years. And I went to my boss and I was like, I can't do 82 games and late nights and early morning flights while I'm pregnant. And so he's like, all right, why don't you start covering the Eagles? And I'm like, fine. Okay, that sounds great. So one of my first days, and I didn't know anybody there, like nobody. And at one of my first days, I was standing in the locker room, and I'm sure you remember this. The locker room was like a rectangle. Yep. And you walk in the door, and there was an equipment window. And then on one side of the room was quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, and then
O-line, right?
I think it was linebackers.
Okay.
And then across from the quarterbacks were the defensive backs, and then blah, blah, blah. And I was standing there. My approach was, I'm going to stand by the equipment window, away from the fray, and wait for whoever it is that I'm talking to, and then I'll go into the fray. Because as you know, it's not a very pleasant place to be, particularly as a woman. And it was you and me for a while. Exactly. That was it. So anyway, so I'm standing there, and the offensive linemen come walking in. And it's August, and it's hot. And again, I don't know anyone. And I'm standing there minding my own business, and they all walk by, and finally there was a rookie at the end of the group, and he looks at me and says, I bet you love seeing all these swinging dicks in here, don't you?
Oh my God.
And it was one of those moments, right? Like, I don't know anyone, and all the players are there. And the defensive backs at that time, Brian Dawkins, Troy Vincent, Al Harris, like really accomplished.
Yeah, big deals.
Big deals. And everybody starts, not everybody, but, the people kind of start laughing, whatever. So I had that moment, like, what do I do? And so I said as loudly as I could, if I wanted to see swinging dicks, I'd still be covering the 76ers.
That's fantastic. Bravo.
And so then all of a sudden everyone started laughing at the rookie.
Right, of course.
And I'll never forget this. Troy Vincent stands up, and this I'm sure will not shock you at all. And he says to the rookie, he's like, "We don't act like that here.
Yeah.
She has every reason to be here, and you will treat her with the respect that she deserves.
Go, Troy.
Apologize."
Wow.
And he did. And then Troy turns to me and looks at me and is like, "Hi, I'm Troy Vincent." And I'm like,
Thank you.
"Thank you." And that was like how our
That's fantastic.
relationship
It does not surprise me
started.
in the least. But that's hilarious. That's it reminds me that when you said that, though, I remember when I was an intern at the Trentonian, I was still in college, and I covered everything from Little League to the Yankees, and they took me to a Yankees game, and Steve Sachs was a second baseman for the Yankees, and I'm trying to do an interview, and he's like leaning over and waving at me and talking behind me, like going, "Ooh, have you ever seen a man naked?" Like over my shoulder, like trying to like kind of rattling me. And I just ignored him and whatever. And as I was walking out, he stopped me. He said, "Nice to see you here. I hope you can come back." And I said, "Oh, I passed your test?" He said, "I wasn't testing you." I said, "You fucking were, and I passed." And I walked out the door. And I was like 20. I don't know who I thought I was, but I did. So yeah, you got to have that look. I don't know what the word is. Nerve, balls, for lack of a better word. Which is a weird choice of words in the swinging dick story, but okay, let's go with it.
You do. And thick skin.
That's fantastic. Good for you. Oh my God, I wish I was there. I don't think I was there. I would have remembered that one.
Yeah, that was a crazy one. But that was my indoctrination into covering the Eagles. And
It's like I think it's all a thing. I don't know if it's intentional, but sometimes it's intentional. In that case, it's intentional. It's like you just have to kind of get your feet wet. You got to just prove that you're not afraid of them or and that's even for like guys. You can't go in there like fanboying and intimidated by anybody, right? Like it just doesn't work. So I literally don't care.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I get the question all the time, and I'm sure you do too. What's the most amazing sporting event you've ever covered?
God, I hate that question.
And
what's your answer? I'll ask you first so I can buy time.
yeah, no, I mean, for me, I covered 12 Super Bowls, and that's like, an amazing event to go to because it's just like the energy in the building, and it's it's the most watched event, whatever. But my favorite thing I ever covered, I was in Greece for the Olympics in 2004, and it was the men's 100 meter.
Oh, wow.
And it was like there were 100,000 people, and they were going crazy. They were playing this like Greek theme song, and it was just like the electricity was insane for a race that lasts,
Right. That's awesome.
a hot second. So, but that for me was the most impressive one.
Because I'm old, I was 2 years out of college at the Christian Laettner shot, sitting behind the Duke bench. And there's even a picture of me with a really bad haircut and a pink blazer involving shoulder pads that probably should never see the light of day. But I was there, and they sent me there. I think they were just like patting me on the head, like, "Go cover the research." I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember Bob Ryan from the Boston Globe saying, "We're not worthy to write about this game." And I was like, well, I should just get in my car. If Bob Ryan thinks that, I'll just go home now. So that was always the first one. Then Chris Jenkins hit the shot for Villanova. And because I had such a history with Villanova, that was it. But honestly, kind of to your point, for like the goosebumps on your arm that I still get when I tell the story, and it's so random for me because it's not really something I cover a whole lot. I was at the Belmont when American Pharoah came around the final turn to break the drought on the Triple Crown. And when 125,000 people, I'm getting goosebumps, stood up and roared when that horse came around the final turn. I have never in my life heard anything like that. And they kept cheering. He crossed the finish line and was still like cooling down, and they were still cheering with the same amount of gusto. So yeah, it's like that moment that was just so once in a life. Like you knew, like I am seeing history right here. Like that's it. I'm seeing history. And that was probably it. Kind of random, right?
No, that's super cool. I think mine's kind of random, but
Yeah, I mean, like I was at the Olympics this year with Simone Biles. Like that was super cool. Like there's a lot of great, cool things, but that I just every time I tell a story about Pharaoh, I get chills still thinking about it in my head. So that has to be it, I think.
that's awesome. That's incredible. I was actually the sports editor of the Indiana Daily Student when Leitner hit that shot.
Wow.
And Leitner knew my father. Because my father's Duke connections, and the day after he hit that shot, I was working in the newsroom, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was Leitner calling to talk to me.
Oh my God!
I know. So then I ended up writing this column, and because Duke was going on to play Indiana,
everyone forgets that wasn't it. Like,
yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah, and so I ended up writing this column, and again, I'm like. 20, like writing this column for the Indiana Daily Student about Christian Leitner calling me. Totally
unbelievable. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like I said, I don't think I was old enough to appreciate everything. I was too terrified at that point to probably appreciate anything. And honestly, the Villanova shot, because I will never forget that too, because I had covered Villanova since Jay started. Like I started on the beat with him, so I've been covering this team and their entire evolution, and Jay's stinking and they want to fire him, and then they're good, but they're not quite good enough. They can't get out of the first round, blah, 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 blah. And then they hit this shot, and I'm just like, and I remember because I'd done all my interviews, and you go back in the media room, and I'm sitting at my computer, and I was just terrified. And it was actually hilarious because you'll appreciate this. Pat Forty came over to me. He's like, so in 1992, I felt like you do right now. Like you did not know, because he was working for the Louisville Courier-Journal, and he did not know how to process that shot for Kentucky's angle. He said, I'm going to give you the same advice that Rick Bozich gave me. And I said, okay, what is it? He's like, get the fuck out of your own way and type. And I was like, okay. And I did. I don't think it was that good, but I did. I just needed someone to say, you're just exhale. Yeah, because I was like, so in my head.
Yeah, big moments.
Yeah, hard to capture.
You want to do
in words.
You want to do them justice. Pivoting a little bit, you've covered so much college sports throughout your career, and obviously now are working for Villanova University. The landscape has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, and is continuing to change almost on a daily basis with name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal. What is your opinion on where we are in college sports, and where do you think it's going to go? Or is going?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball. It's messy because we went from 0 to 400 in about a day. That's I think the biggest problem is that, I mean, in my opinion anyway, the NCAA's reluctance to sort of face the future for such a long time and fight the future meant that when the future came, it came in like an avalanche, and nobody was prepared for it. They didn't set up guardrails. They didn't think about the if X happens, what happens to Y. There was no thought process because it just happened with lawsuits. So it's super messy out there. I will say at the very granular level, though, when you get in it, like when you're around a college basketball team, like I am every day, nothing has changed. There are a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old knuckleheads who are delightful, who need your guidance, who want your guidance, who want help, who want to win, who care. All of that stuff is the same. I just think there's so many people in their worlds now that some probably don't have the best of intentions, and I fear that a lot of kids are going to get taken advantage of by shady NIL agents, by shady coaches, by all kinds of things. And schools are now scrambling to make all of this money. And I get mad. As you know, my son's a manager for Michigan State, so I always have Tom Izzo. I'm like his sounding board. He calls me for like hour-long conversations. And I get mad when coaches say that they don't have any control, because I'm like, well, you're still offering the scholarship and the spot on your roster, right? And well, if I don't, someone else is going to pay him more and take him. And I'm like, right. So if it's not the kind of kid, if it's the kind of kid that's only coming to play for you because they're going to get paid top dollar, he's probably not your kid anyway. So why do you care? Let them go. And when the first team that wins a national championship wins it with like 12 transfers, call me, because it's never happened. Like, we all, in college basketball especially, they get caught up in the next hot thing. Like when John Calipari won the national title in 2012 with Anthony Davis and all these one and dones. Everyone's like, everyone's got to have one and dones. Actually, everybody just needed Anthony Davis. That was the difference. Like, he won that national title. And lo and behold, every team from 2013 until last year that has won a national title is generally built with the same foundational players who are in the program for a couple of years, and they add in a transfer. They add in a one and done. UConn, Tristan Newton was a 2-year sit-out player. Donovan Clingan was a player that was homegrown. Alex Caravan was. Steph Castle was a one and done. Yes, they were a mixed match. So everyone is trying to now, like, I have to pay the most money. I have to have all the transfers. No, you have to probably pay money to a really good player, get a couple of transfers, and hopefully grow your own. I don't think... I'm tired of coaches saying, like, we have no control. So the letters N and O still are effective. And if you use them, they may work. And yeah, those guys may, if you say no to them, they may go to another school. But until that works as a successful model, say no. I mean, I tell Izzo all the time, like, you're Tom Izzo. Like, at the end of the day, you have way more control than the 20-year-old kid that you shouldn't have to chase. If he doesn't want to play for you, there's 10 other ones who do. So go find the kids that suit you and coach them and hope they stick around. And if they don't, find 5 more kids that suit you and want to stick around. I know that sounds very pie in the sky, but I'm not quite sure why nobody else seems to think that way. That's how teams win national titles. Even, Ohio State, yes, they paid a lot of money for their football team, but most of those guys, Will Howard is not exactly like the greatest quarterback in the history of mankind. He's okay, So Jack Sawyers was born in Columbus, and he's their best defensive player, and that's where he wanted to go to school. The guys that matter are the guys that want to be there. That's who you should chase and pay them if you have to, sure. So that maybe is, like I said, I might be naive, but that's just my own soapbox.
Anybody listening to you?
Probably not. I mean, I try. And I also keep saying, like, worry about retention as much as recruitment. Like, stop spending all the money to recruit players. Worry about keeping them. Keep guys in your program. That's when they get good, when they stick around. That, to me, is the secret sauce.
Totally. Last year, you made a fairly momentous career change to go
I did.
to leave sports writing and go work in athletics at Villanova University. A school, as we've talked about, well and covered extensively, and you wrote 2 books about their basketball program. And why make the move when you did? Was it time or a reflection of your feelings about the journalism industry, or a little of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think time is a lot of it. It was funny when I was talking to Steven Ginsberg, who's the executive, he's the editor of The Athletic, where I left, about why I was leaving, and I was trying to explain it to him. And he said it more crystal clear than I could. He said, "You did it." I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, there wasn't a game I needed to cover. There wasn't a gym I needed to go to. There wasn't an event. I mean, I love still going to all of those things, but I wasn't, like, eager. And sometimes I found myself like, I got to go on a plane. How fast can I get back? You know what I mean? And you have to be energetic to do it. And I still loved the process of writing. I loved talking to people and telling stories. I just got tired of chasing the same thing. Like, everyone's all Twitter about Cooper Flagg at Duke. And I'm like, I have written about Cooper Flagg. His name 5 years ago, whatever it was Zion Williamson. Like, there's always a next phenom. Like, I'm not that, whatevs. Like, he seems like a great player. Good luck, Cooper. But I don't need to tell your story. So that was a lot of it. And, the industry's a hot mess. But, and I think, and I always joke with my older friends, like, I wonder if people before us, like, talked about the younger generation like we talk about them. Like I feel like an old, salty old woman, like, they don't do it right anymore. They do. They just do it differently. And I just was like, I don't really want to do it that way. Like, I'm not interested in winning a Twitter battle or winning a Twitter war or amassing the most. I could give 2 hoots. I have muted more people than I follow. That is God's honest truth. I mute people. Right. I don't care if you follow me. I don't care if you recognize me. I don't care if I have a brand. I don't care. I just want to write my words and be left alone. And I know that doesn't really exist anymore. So that was part of it too. And the final piece was the simplest piece. Like, I wouldn't have done this anywhere else. Like, that was the thing. Like, I can't go to a school that wasn't going to be good and competitive. Like, I couldn't do this at some random D3 school. So that narrowed the pot. I'm not moving. My husband's been at Princeton for 30 years. We're not relocating. So that narrowed the pot. And then I wasn't going to go to a school where I would have to like hold my nose and hope that they're not doing things illegally. So that really narrowed the pot. And I know most of the people at Villanova. I've known them for 20 years. So I trusted them. It felt comfortable. It felt natural. Yeah, and it was just like, oh, this all makes sense. Like, I wanted to go cover the Olympics. That was my last bucket list. So I did. And I came home from Paris on whatever day it was, and I gave my notice the very next day. Like, I literally called like my editor. I'm like, hi, I just got back from Paris. By the way, I'm leaving. She's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm leaving. She was like, what? But she got it. She was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we call a veteran move right there. Go to Paris for 3 weeks.
I was like, yeah, exactly. Pay my way to Paris. Let me cover Simone Biles and bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it was great. And I was like, I'll stick around as much as you need. And then my editor was like, oh, no, we owe you vacation time. Go away. Go to the beach. I was like, okay. So I did. It was great.
That's great.
It was.
All right. Well, here at OUTFOXED, we close with 3 questions that we ask everybody so we can, compare and contrast answers.
I'm going to go about Ginza Wilbon and Jay Billis.
So first, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. My husband would say be patient because I'm not, but that's never going to happen, so why waste my breath? I would just say, like, relax about, like, I think I really enjoyed my career. I still enjoy my career, but I think sometimes I got so caught up in doing my career that I don't know if I necessarily appreciated everything that I got to do as best as I certainly do now when I look back. But in the moment, did I get how cool that was to do? Probably not, because I was so uptight about writing it better than everybody else or beating somebody this. I think just relax and like it's sports writing. Like it's meant to be fun and it's okay to have some fun with it. So that would probably be it. I think I just got a little bit in my head.
That's understandable. I can relate to that. Again, my soul sister over here. What is the elusive thing for which you're still striving?
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. I think that changes, right? Like as you get older, I think like when I was younger, it was like, oh, to be taken seriously and respect and all of those things. And like, I remember when I got laid off thinking like, I just hope I didn't care if they liked me, I just hope they respected me. And I got a lot of text messages from a lot of coaches like, okay, I did that right. So that was important. Now I feel like I got that one done. I think it's just balance and contentment. Like I was so busy with my career and I think I was a good mom. I'm not discrediting that, but I kind of like the part now where, part of the other thing that made Villanova appealing to me, I know we talked about this, is like when your kids are younger and you're busy, they can kind of adjust to your schedule because that's what they do. But now my kids are older and they have lives, so I want to be able to be adjusting to theirs. Like I want to be available when they are available, not when I say they should be. So I think that balance and contentment, I want to be able to do my job and really do it well, and then put the phone down, put the job down, and go be over here and not worry about whatever might be next. And certainly Villanova affords that because, I mean, God willing, there's not a lot of breaking news because if it is, then I'm really busy. But, I'm not chasing that anymore. So that should provide that contentment. But I'm still in my head like, oh, I got to do this. Just like breathe and go enjoy the part that you earned, I think. I think I earned it.
I'll say you did. It's hard though. I mean, we're wired similarly.
Yeah, and I think it's a woman thing too. Like you just constantly feel like you're constantly having to prove yourself, right? And so when you don't have to prove yourself anymore, you're like, but don't I still have to prove myself to somebody else? Like I feel like that's part of it. Like I always had to make sure that everyone took me seriously, respected me. And now I'm pretty sure that they do, but then I'm still feel like, well, that guy over there doesn't. I don't even know who that guy is, but you know what I mean? Like he needs to take me seriously. No, he doesn't. He's just like a dude walking down the sidewalk. So.
Yeah. My God, that's so funny. All right. And finally, I'm not sure if you know this, but here at OUTFOXED, while we talk mostly sports, we do it through the lens of soul. What does soul mean to you in terms of your career and your life, my soul sister?
Oh my God. Let's get really deep here. What does soul mean in terms of my life? I mean, there's so my life and my career. Like my life, my soul is like, it's all the stuff that matters, right? It's like the stuff that lights you up inside, which is my family and my friends, and just being able to like pick up the phone and catch up with my college girlfriend who I haven't talked to in 16 months and picking up right where we left off. Like that to me is like, I did that part. Like the soul is like the part of my life that I did that right. I made those relationships and those connections, and they're real and they're genuine and they're not going anywhere. Like that to me is the soul of my life. My soul of my career is, again, I think it's just, I think it's being able to take pride in not just what you did, but how you did it. I think those are two very different things. A lot of people are really talented writers, and but I feel like I did it with, I was fair, and I still try to be fair, and I try to be honest. And so it's about that pride in the fact that I did that well. Like, and I didn't do it well because I was a good writer. I did it well because I took the profession seriously. I took the people I worked with seriously. I treated them the way they were supposed to be treated because it was important to me to get that in return. So that to me is like that's that pride in like doing the job well, I think is important. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. That was a tricky question.
And I totally agree. My soul sister,
There you
Dana
go.
O'Neill. Thank you so much. Outfoxed is a mostly sports podcast with soul. Hosted by me, Ashley Fox. Outfoxed is proudly produced in Philadelphia by Dearest Media in collaboration with Blow My Mind podcast.